Yeah.
Please.
How would you describe the relationship between Anna and Christian?
I think it's fairly complicated. I think there are two people that, on paper, probably, wouldn't usually be together, but they need each other and they do love each other very deeply, and they end up making massive sacrifices and changes in their life to make it work. Which I think so many people can relate to. Maybe not in the exact terms that the changes that they've made in these books and in these films, but I think everyone can relate to, sacrifices for love and adaptation for love and everything. So.
Do you think maybe that's a reason why the whole franchise is so successful?
Yeah, I do, because it's not the first book of its type, but it's certainly the first book of its type to, have such an impact, and for, was it over 100 million people read the books? I mean, you may never see the like of that again, in any book, never mind a book that's, categorized as, erotic, like fantasy novel or whatever. So there has to be so much more to it, and I think that's what resonates with people.
So 50 Shades is such a great phenomenon, you already said that, and you're in the center of it, in the middle. Yeah. Do you get used to it? Is it still crazy?
No, because it's the only times you feel that you're at the center of it in a weird way are days like this, or when your premieres and all the focus is on that, and you see all the fans and how much it means to them and all that. I think that's when you're like, oh, this is a big thing. It means a lot to a lot of people, and you feel very much at the center of it. You obviously feel part of it all the time, and that you wear that and you carry that with you. But when you're in such a bubble when you're making movies, and it is just very much just you, the other actors and the crew, and that sort of outside world and intrigue with what you're doing, and interest, it sort of doesn't filter in a way, unless now and again we're like on location somewhere and fans would be there and you get a sense of it. For the most part, you're sort of in a studio like this and you're just focused on the work, and you're not that aware of the sort of heightened madness around something like this.
How did your life change? I mean, can you grab a coffee somewhere and just be relaxed on the streets in London?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I definitely get recognised more now than I would have previous to this job, of course, but I don't, it hasn't had that much of effect. I think there's people who would get it a lot worse, and we sort of made a point of moving out of London now, so we're out in the countryside, sort of in the middle of nowhere, and that definitely helps. I think you can go seeking it a bit more. I'm not saying that if you live in London you're seeking any kind of like recognition, but it's definitely easier if you're not there.
Is it easy for you to shake off the role after the shoot? I mean, if you're shooting rough scenes or if you're shooting love scenes during the day and you get home, how do you try to shake it all off?
Well, I mean, for this movie, and we shot 2 and 3 back to back, and my family were with me in Vancouver for the entirety of the shoot, so they were there for 5 months or whatever it was. And I have 2 young kids, 2 kids under 3, so you have no choice as soon as you walk through the door but to shake it off. You can't carry any of the character with you, no matter what job you're doing. Kids don't allow you to be anything but dad, and that's a brilliant thing, and it's actually really beneficial in helping you just leave the work behind and pick it up again the next day.
So how was shooting again with Dakota, second time? Was it easier? How was the chemistry between you both?
I think it's easier because we know each other a lot better. The first movie, they're heightened situations, this, right? You're dealing with quite a lot of sex scenes, pretty much with a stranger for the most part, and that is an odd sort of environment. But Dakota and I have an ease with each other now, and a respect for each other, which I think is very important. We make each other laugh very easily. Again, I think that's very important when you're trying to get through days like that, where it's so sort of heightened and at times feels very surreal. So it was definitely, I think in general, 2 and 3 was an easier process because not just Dakota and I, but everyone knew each other better and were more comfortable around each other and becomes a bit more like a sort of family atmosphere and that makes work easier, you know.
Do you still talk about your first love scene sometimes, or do you know what was running through your head?
I don't know if I remember the first love scene. Probably should. No, I don't actually remember it. Oh, I do. Okay, I do remember. We were sort of eased into it quite gently. The first one, you know, we didn't do anything too extreme on day one. So we purposely left most of that to the end of the shoot in the first movie so that Dakota and I had time to sort of get to know each other better and feel more comfortable around each other. So I think that was sort of important, you know.
Yeah, to get to know each other and to get used to each other.
Yeah,
I think
definitely.
That's really everyone thinks about that. So I read in an interview that you were a skinny kid.
Yeah.
And you struggled with that, or did you struggle? Well, is that true, first of all? And how was it for you? How were the challenges as a kid? Because now you look completely different.
I think I still feel like a skinny kid. I now just feel like a skinny adult. Yeah, I've always struggled with that. I don't. I played a lot of sport at school. Still love sport very passionately. And I played a lot of rugby at school, and I was never. I sort of loved it and did all right at it, but always just wasn't sort of big enough. And I think that does have quite an effect on you mentally, you know. And it means that you sort of are always striving to sort of prove people wrong, I think, in that kind of world. But yeah, I think like so kids, you know, every kid has so many insecurities, and you know, I don't think you shake them off in adulthood. I think you carry them with you, and a big part of me will always feel like the skinny kid who isn't quite big enough to be playing with the big guys, you know.
But you do. Obviously, you are.
Well.
So you made a big transition from your modeling career to your acting career.
Mm-hmm.
What were the challenges? I mean, it worked out really well.
It's worked out okay so far, I think, but that could all change any moment. I'm always fearful of that or mindful of that. I never wanted to be a model, really. Something I sort of felt like the right thing to do at the time, and sort of guided down a path to an extent, and I needed to be guided down it because I wasn't going to take it myself, I don't think. But without that, if I hadn't gone down that path, I never probably would have ended up here, ended up acting. I just had a very strong sense when I was younger, and when you're starting to try to make those decisions in your late teens of like what you're going to do for a living and stuff, those terrifying prospects. I just knew that I didn't want to work in an office environment of any kind. I knew I didn't have the right temperament or aptitude or sort of resilience to do that. So, you know, I'd always enjoyed acting or whatever, and the modelling thing, just I know what that was, but it happened for quite a long time, and then I was very happy to get out of it.
So I read in an interview that you shared an apartment with Eddie Redmayne. Is that true? How can I imagine this living situation? Party every day, or how was it?
We partied a bit, yeah, we did. We were, it was a long time ago now. You know, Eddie's one of my closest friends, and him and I, and there's a sort of load of actors from the British Isles, if you like, in Britain and Ireland, and we'd all come over to LA and try and fail to get work, and I mean, it really was like that. Like it wasn't really happening for any of us, and we were all in our early to mid 20s, I guess, at the time. And yeah, Eddie and I rented a house up in Laurel Canyon for a couple of months, and just tried to do what every other guy's doing. It was like trying to make something happen in LA, and it didn't. Definitely didn't happen. We had a fair share of rejection, but we had good fun. We played a lot of ping pong. That was my abiding memory. We played a lot of table tennis. That's how we filled the days after failed auditions.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah, beer and table tennis. It's a good combination.
Okay, do you know any funny story of any craziest fan reaction you have had?
Not really. I mean, there is one that I remember. I was in what I call a lift, and people in the States probably call it an elevator. I don't know what you call it in Germany. What do you call it, an elevator or a lift?
Aufzug, elevator.
Elevator, okay. So I was in an elevator, And there was a woman who sort of mid-flight recognised me as being Christian Grey, and she was a few sheets to the wind, as you say. She was pretty hammered, and she started telling me about how 50 Shades had induced a baby for them. Not induced, like she wasn't in labour and then read it and went into labour, but like they, as a result of reading the book, her and her partner started to have far more sex, and they got a baby out of it. And they could, she said, I mean, she was hammered, but I think she said that they couldn't have children before or something. So that's quite a positive, nice fan reaction.
What did you say?
Well,
Congratulations.
I don't. What do you say? I was like, that's great. You know, you should name the baby Christian. I don't know.
Good idea. Or Jamie.
Yeah.
So, yeah, how did this fame affect your personal life? What did change for you? I mean, you said you moved to the countryside, and how did your family and your closest family react?
I mean, I don't think any of that really changes it. I mean, we moved to the countryside, but we've had a place in the countryside for 6 years anyway, so we just decided to move there more permanently. You know, on the personal side of things, like nothing really changes. You know, my family are the same. I've had the same group of mates since I was a very young kid, and that they really don't care about what I do for a living. It doesn't interest them at all. What they do for a living doesn't really interest me much. Our friendship is based on things above that, hopefully. So everything just sort of goes on regardless. I think they get freaked out if guys have grown up with me when there's people recognise me and stuff. They don't enjoy that. I don't enjoy it either. But I think they find that very sort of alien because it's so far from what we would have known growing up. You know, unless you grew up somewhere weird like LA, you probably aren't sort of used to that kind of thing. You know.
Did they watch the movie?
I'd say some of my friends have watched the movie, but I'd say for the most part they haven't. No.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.